hour. If you get the information that you need, you're able to log off. I'm also recording this, so I'll also upload it so that you'll be able to see it and others will be able to see it too, okay? And the information here, I'll put it under week 10 along with the activities that we have planned for week 10, okay? Okay. Are you able to see the screen here for this, the details for the final? This is available under week 9, and it's listed as the assignment grading criteria. So you're able to download this, and this along with the rubric will give you the details for the final exam. And you can kind of take a look at this and follow along with the information that I'm going to provide today. It's just a really very basic, simple form of what we have here in front of us. Okay? Okay. And so your final reflection will include information across the whole entire course, but specifically framed within your observation or your interview, whichever one you conducted, your lesson plan implementation, and then kind of a reflections on the course. All right? Okay. So it will have 3 major sections within your final. You have an analysis section, a synthesis section, and a reflection section. Okay? Now let's take a look at this. If you completed the observation or your interview, this information is the same. You will have an introduction within that section. You will have a section on strengths, section on weaknesses, a section on the most effective teaching method, the least effective teaching method, the effective technology strategies, your classroom learning objectives, you'll talk about those if those were met, and then any obstacles. Now I'm going to go back through each one of those bullets really quickly. Okay, and as I said, the information for this is directly within the, if you go under content within our class, under week 9, under the assignment grading criteria, this is that same information. So you will start your paper with an introduction section. And again, I want you to think about this as an introduction to the very first observation or the very first interview that you conducted. You'll have an introduction. And within that introduction, you'll talk about the who, the what, the when, the where, and the why of that observation and interview. Next, you'll go through and you'll identify the strengths and the weaknesses of what you observed. And you'll explain it and why. And this is where your notes that you took and you uploaded will come in handy, because you want to go back to your notes and you want to pull out and highlight for yourself all of the strengths that you saw within that instruction. And you want to explain those and give the whys to that. You want to do the same thing for the weaknesses, and you want to pull out specific examples and explain why you're identifying the instruction that you're identifying as a weakness, or whatever piece of that you're identifying as a weakness. Next, you want to pull out the most effective teaching method that you were able to observe or that you learned about through your interview. And you want to go through again and explain that. And you want to go through that same procedure with the least effective teaching method that you either discussed within your interview or that you observed firsthand within your observation. The next piece to that is you want to then specifically zero in on the technology that was used and the instructional strategies that were used to deliver that piece of instruction, or whether how they use the software or whichever app they use. But you want to really zero in on the technology and then pull out an evaluation of those strategies. And when you want to kind of evaluate it, you want to either use TPACK. You want to look back at our discussions that we talked about as far as PBL. You want to look at our section when we discuss the ways in which we should teach creativity. You want to look at those particular measures as a way in which to discuss and frame what you talk about as far as the technology strategies that were used. And then you want to go through and listen to the classroom learning objectives. You want to go through and look back at your notes of what you were able to identify as far as the classroom learning objectives. And you want to ask yourself, were those objectives met? Did the teacher actually succeed in teaching whatever it is that was set out to be taught that day? And again, you want to go back to your notes and see what you have there as far as that observation, and then the same with the interview. And then finally, you want to look at if there were any obstacles in implementing the technology. And I looked through in there, and several of your observations, you talked a lot about the need for backup technology and a backup plan in case something doesn't go well. So you always want to plan to have a backup. And so we're going to talk about if there were any obstacles in implementing the technology and then why that was the case, okay, and explain it. That's the beginning. When that section that talks about the analysis, these are the sections that I would like for you to then in some way use as headings within that analysis section, and you'll complete this process with each of your observations and each of your interviews. So you should have 2 of these sections listed with all of this information addressed within each. Okay, that's section number 1, the analysis section. Okay. I'm going to go next to that second section, which is the synthesis section. Okay, so the next section will be entitled Synthesis, and within the synthesis section, there are 3 subsections, and they're all talking about your suggestions. So the first is your suggestions to support the student learning. What suggestions do you come up with that would assist in supporting student learning based upon the observation that you saw or the interview that you participated in? And again, you want to pull out key specifics from your notes to explain the suggestions that you provide. Next, you want to go through and you want to make some suggestions on the methods. Yes. Could I can hear someone's TV in the background. Could you please, you can mute your audio for a moment, please, so that we won't get any conflicting sound. So the next one would be your suggested implementation methods. So what particular methods would you then suggest? You may have witnessed a teacher let's say, using a particular approach that you have found another approach to be more effective. So you want to kind of explain the way in which you felt that the teacher was using a particular instructional method or implementing, and you have another suggestion that you want to provide. You want to use that specifics from your notes and then give an explanation as to why. And the same with the software and the applications. If you see someone that is maybe using PowerPoint, and you may want to say, hey, there's some other Powtoons, there's some other fun ways in which the students may find a little user-friendlier way in which they're able to present some of their activities. So maybe use some different applications or some different software to assist that may be a little bit more appropriate for the students. So you want to then give some software suggestions and some apps or some other application or website use suggestions to go along with that. And that is the synthesis section. So you will complete this synthesis section, again, for each of your observations, or if you did interviews, each of your interviews. And also, this same process that we did for the first piece for the analysis, and now for the synthesis, you'll also complete for the implementation of your lesson. So not only will you complete this process for the teacher in which you discussed and you talked with and you observed, but you'll also complete this for yourself, and you will reflect upon the lesson in which you implemented. Okay? The last section will be a course reflection, and this you will only have to complete one time, okay, because you're only reviewing the course one time. And so there are really 4 pieces to this. The first is for you to think about what experience or what aspect of the course was most influential for your professional growth. Did you find that the readings were the most effective for you? Did you find that actually implementing your lesson was the most effective for you? Do you think the peer process or the materials or our discussions, or so you want to go through and really think about the course as a whole and think about what was the most influential piece for you, what was the most helpful piece for you, and then give some evidence to explain why. And this is helpful because this is an evaluation for me that I take back to the course and we take back larger to the department to then evaluate the course and see what things we need to change and what things we need to make better. So for you to kind of just sit down and say, what was the best part of the course for me, and this is why, so that we can see what to enhance and what may be not as beneficial for you. So once you pull out and you say, okay, this piece, the readings and the discussions, that was really the most beneficial to me, and I appreciated that the most. The readings were really timely. They really applied to what I was doing for the classroom, and I felt that they were very helpful. So as a result of that, what will you then change? So now that I read so much on creativity, I was able to talk to a teacher who was able to use creativity. I then implemented creativity within my lesson, and I really feel now that I want to make sure that that's a piece of what I'm doing within every unit and every activity that I'm doing with my students. So as a result of the different readings and the discussions, I'm going to go through and make sure that I am inviting and opening the door for creativity to be with an element within my classroom that's not only present but also assessed and so forth. So that first bullet says, identify that most influential piece of the course for you. And then the second piece is, what will you then change within your classroom? What changes will you make as a result of what you've learned? All right. And then the third piece to that is, why will this improve your teaching? Well, I think if I then implement creativity within all of the units and assess for creativity within my classroom, my students will be better, more well-rounded citizens. And so this is something that's important to me, and I think will be important to them. And so it will really help me grow as an educator if I'm able to do this. And so you want to give examples and explain that. That's the third bullet. And then the last one is to really think about the dispositions. And we really get into dispositions a little bit more within week 11. And for that, we talk about the different attitudes and the mindset that you will need to be an effective educator. And so I would really want you to give a little bit of thought within that piece as far as what dispositions will you need to be a better educator, and really think about how the course has helped you to get to that particular understanding, and how we're able to help you to be a better teacher and of attaining and maintaining that particular mindset that will make you an effective educator. Okay, and as I said, we spend week 11 in depth on the dispositions, and UMUC has a policy on dispositions, and we have an activity and discussion and things that go along with dispositions. And so that's really that piece that you will pick up within week 11. Now I want to go through the major pieces here and recap. So there will be that analysis and synthesis section. You will have both sections for observation number 1 or interview number 1. You have both sections for observation number 2 or interview number 2. And you will also have both of those sections for the implementation of your lesson. All right, so you're not only using that to then to analyze and synthesize the observation in the interview, but also for the lesson that you've implemented. There will only be one course reflection section. You have to do that one time, and you can put that toward the end of your paper. Of course, throughout the your reflection, we want to have a representative of graduate level writing, as far as your mechanics are concerned and spelling and so forth. And also we want to include the appropriate APA citations, format, and also the organization of your paper should be within a proper graduate level writing. This is due on Saturday, December 3rd at 11:59 p.m. and it will be submitted within TK20.